When my husband said he was haunted by the accident, I didn't think he meant literally. My husband, Howard, had been working away for a few days. On his way home, he lost control of his car during a downpour and crashed into another car. He got lucky. The other vehicle wasn't so fortunate, crashing into a transmission tower. The driver was a single mom, her 5-year-old son in the back. Neither survived. As the months went by, Howard was plagued with guilt. I suggested therapy, but he refused. I had to remind him daily that it wasn't his fault. He was a good man, a wonderful husband, and a great father to our 7-year-old son, Oscar. "They haunt me, Sasha," he'd say, his hands shaking. I can only imagine what that kind of experience will do to a person's mind. One of the hardest things was trying to explain to Oscar why Daddy was always sad and didn't want to play games anymore. One night, I was jolted awake by screaming. "She's here, Sasha!" Howard cried. "It was just a bad dream," I said, trying to console him. "No," he screamed, pointing to the corner of the room. "She's here. She won't leave me alone." Our bedroom was empty, but I jumped as Oscar made a sudden appearance. "Daddy," he said, scared. "Come here, buddy," said Howard, holding out his arms. I could feel Howard trembling as he hugged Oscar, his eyes fixed to the corner of the room. A few days later, Howard made a suggestion. "I've been thinking it might be better for the two of you if I stay with my folks for a while. At least until I feel more myself." I felt bad, but it was a relief to hear. I was mentally exhausted and worried about how his behavior was affecting Oscar, too. Howard's parents lived a 2-hour drive away. We made plans to visit on weekends. Oscar was my shadow for a couple of days, but regular video calls with Dad seemed to relax him. One afternoon, Oscar was playing in his room as I caught up with some shows that we put on hold. I heard him laugh cheerfully. I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard him laugh. I crept upstairs, my heart filled with warmth. "Do you want to have a go?" I heard him say. At that point, I assumed he'd invited a friend over without my permission, which was against our house rules. I tapped on his bedroom door before pushing it open. "Oscar, who are you talking to?" He was sitting on the floor with his toy cars. There was no one with him. "Hey, where'd you go?" he said, looking around. "Mom, there was a boy here." "Was there?" I asked. Oscar had never exhibited signs of having an imaginary friend before. "Yes." He was crying in the closet, so I invited him to play. That gave me a shiver. Why was he crying? He shrugged. "I don't know, but he stopped when we started playing." The closet door was open, so I peeked inside. There was nothing unusual. We visited Howard that weekend. Oscar's grandparents took him out for ice cream, giving my husband and I some alone time. It was the first time we'd made love in months. "Oscar has an imaginary friend," I said as we cuddled. "Really?" he asked. "He said there was a boy in his closet," I chuckled. They played with his toys together. Howard shifted uncomfortably. "Are you serious?" "I don't think it's anything to worry about. I did a bit of research. It's completely normal for a lot of kids." He let out a long breath. "You're probably right, Sasha. The poor kid's been through a lot, what with having a crazy dad and all." "Don't say that," I said. "He misses you. You seem a lot better, honey." "I have my moments, but I'm getting there. Mom has talked me into seeing a therapist." I squeezed his hand. "I think that would be good for you. We want you back home as soon as possible. How would you feel about Oscar coming to stay with me next weekend? Give you a little break. You've pretty much been a single parent these past few weeks." "He's such a good boy," I said. "No trouble at all. But he'd love a weekend with Dad." Sure enough, Oscar was excited about spending the whole weekend with Howard. I heard him talking to his new friend about it as they played. But one evening, as I was making dinner, I was startled by several bangs coming from Oscar's bedroom. Stop it! I heard him cry. Oscar? I yelled, running upstairs. I burst into his bedroom to find him crying on the floor. What happened? I asked. Lucas doesn't want me to go to Dad's. Lucas, that's your friend's name? I crouched down and put my arm around him. What was that banging I heard? He held up one of his toy cars. The front of it was mangled, like it had been smashed against something with force. How did this happen? Lucas hit it on the floor, he said, pointing to a spot. There was a mark on the wooden floorboards. It was hard to believe that my 7-year-old son could cause such damage. It was harder to believe that his imaginary friend had done it. Oscar, if you don't want to stay with Daddy, you don't have to. I do, he said. But Lucas said Daddy scares him. It felt like something walked over my grave. Be honest with me, sweetheart. Did Lucas say that, or is that how you feel? He started crying. I want Dad to come home. Me too, I said, hugging him as I looked around the room. I kissed the top of his head. Go wash your hands. Dinner's almost ready. Oscar had never done anything like that before. He was having a harder time with the situation than I thought. That night, I searched Google for advice. It appeared that once again, such behaviors were normal in some children. He potentially had repressed anger as a result of Howard leaving us. The following Friday, I helped Oscar pack a weekend bag. Do you want to take any toys? I asked. He shook his head. No, I'll leave them for Lucas. Oh, is he not going with you? He said he doesn't want to be near Dad. My heart sank. Are you sure you want to go, sweetheart? He nodded. I can't wait. Howard came to pick Oscar up in the afternoon. It was so cute seeing our little boy run into his arms. I'll drop him back Sunday, said Howard, giving me a kiss. Love you, Sasha. Love you, I smiled. Have fun, boys. I waved them goodbye, trying not to worry too much. They both needed this. I was hopeful that it would be the catalyst for Howard coming home. In the meantime, I had a free weekend. Since Oscar was born, I hadn't spent a single night away from him. Some girlfriends were coming over for takeout pizza and wine. For the first time in years, I didn't have to be a responsible mom. That evening, I got the inevitable topic of Howard's departure out of the way so I could let my hair down. We drank, danced, and played rummy. I even smoked a few cigarettes. It was just like my college days, albeit with good wine rather than cheap vodka. As the evening wound down, it was just one friend remaining. She called an Uber, then used the upstairs bathroom. Oscar's definitely not here, right? She asked when she returned. Definitely, why'd you ask? She chuckled. I swear I heard a kid crying up there. My blood ran cold. What? It's the wine, Sash. I'm going to regret that tomorrow. I'll admit it took me some time to go upstairs when she left. My heart raced as I pushed Oscar's bedroom door open. There were some toy cars on the floor. I asked myself, had they been left there? Oscar was usually pretty good at keeping his room tidy. The next morning, I cleared the empty wine bottles and pizza boxes with a slight headache. I lit one of my scented candles to mask the hint of tobacco that lingered. When Oscar started preschool, Howard converted our garden shed into a mini workshop. I made and sold scented candles on Etsy. It didn't break the bank, but it covered our streaming subscriptions and kept me sane when daytime boredom struck. After breakfast, I went to the shed to work on more candles. I have an electric-powered melting pot made specifically for wax. I began the process of melting small beads of soy wax, adding a pine-scented oil. I find it very relaxing. After a while, I saw the shape of someone walk past the shed window. Hello? I said, looking around the garden. I couldn't see anyone. Hello, came a voice from behind, startling me. It was a woman, around mid to late 20s. Can I help you? I asked. I was just looking for my son. Have you seen him? I shook my head. You're the first person I've seen today. Is he a friend of Oscar's? He is. Sorry, I thought I knew all of his friends' parents. Oscar isn't here at the moment. He's with his dad. I see, she said, looking disappointed. If you give me your number, I can call you if he shows up. She shook her head. I don't have a phone. Oh, okay. What's your son's name? Lucas, she said. I couldn't contain my gasp. Who are you? She sighed. Perhaps I'll come back later. She turned to leave. Please, ma'am. I'm Sasha. Who are you? She turned back with a slight smile. I can see why he fell in love with you. I felt gooseflesh on my arms. Excuse me? I'll come back later, she said, walking away. No, tell me who you are. I felt so uncomfortable as I was left alone in the garden, heading back to the house. A little later, I drove to the grocery store. I triple-checked that I had locked all doors and windows before leaving, paranoid that the woman would come back. I walked down the aisles on autopilot, my head elsewhere. I couldn't stop thinking about her. There was a part of me that felt like I knew her from somewhere, too. That evening, I sat in front of the TV but paid no attention to it. I wanted nothing more than my family back. I didn't want to be alone. As I contemplated calling a friend for company, I heard a noise coming from upstairs. My heart rate increased, but I chose to ignore it. Instead, I called a friend after all. A loud bang came from upstairs, making me freeze. I hung up as voicemail kicked in. I'm going to call the police. I called out. My hands shook as I climbed the stairs, clinging to the steel mallet that came with our kitchen knives. I'd never used the damn thing before, but it was a good weapon should I need to protect myself. The sound of a child crying became clearer as I got closer to Oscar's room. I'd never been so scared as I pushed the door open to find a little boy on the floor, sniveling as he pushed toy cars around. I dropped the mallet. Lucas? I stuttered. When is Oscar coming back? He asked, not looking up. I tried to stay calm. He'll be home from his dad's tomorrow. Daddy is a bad man, he said. I took a step closer. Why do you say that? He smashed one of the cars down onto the floorboards, making me flinch. He did a bad thing, he said. Then he slowly looked up. Mommy? Oh, sweetheart, I said. I'm not your mommy. No, came a voice from behind me. I am. I almost fell down as the woman from earlier passed by me, helping Lucas up. You, who are you? I said. I think you know, Sasha, she said, walking into the open closet. I don't. Get out of my house. We'll be waiting, she said. With that, the closet door slammed shut. I ran back downstairs, grabbing my phone and keys. I got in my car, struggling to get the keys in the ignition. I drove out of our neighborhood, pulling over after several minutes. It took a while, but eventually, I opened my phone and began a Google search. Imogen and Lucas, mother and son. They tragically died as a result of the car accident. Their faces and names should have stayed with me, but I'd pushed them aside in order to be stronger for my husband. He wasn't losing his mind. They were haunting us. I drove home and went back up to Oscar's room. I shivered as the closet door creaked open, Imogen and Lucas waiting. Why are you here? I asked, my voice wavering. I'm sorry for what happened, but it was an accident. Imogen held out her hand. Come inside. I shook my head. Please, leave my family alone. Daddy did a bad thing, said Lucas. He didn't. I yelled. It wasn't his fault. Leave us alone. I screamed as my body was dragged into the closet by an unseen force, and the door slammed shut behind me. The lighting was low, but I could see the furious expression on Imogen's face as she grabbed my arms. "I'll show you," she said, then everything went dark. I was in a bar with some young women. We were laughing about something. "He's been checking you out all night," one of them said to me. A handsome man was sitting alone. He smiled as I caught his eye. "I'll get us some more drinks, girls," I said, heading to the bar. I stood next to the man, offering a smile as I waited for service. "I don't usually do this kind of thing," he said, "but can I buy you a drink?" "The thing is," I said, "I'm with the girls, and it's my round." "How about this round's on me," he said, "in exchange for your number?" I laughed. "That's pretty forward. I'm only in town for a few days, and you're the most beautiful woman I've seen in a long time. I'd kick myself if I didn't try." We made love in a small apartment. No, we fucked like animals. It wasn't until afterwards that I noticed the ring. "You're a bad boy, Howard," I chuckled. He grinned. "You're a hard woman to resist, Imogen." We met whenever he was in town. After some time, I felt pregnant. I didn't tell him. Instead, I became distant. It was a hard decision, but I wanted to keep the baby. I didn't think he'd understand. Months went by, and he surprised me with a visit. I couldn't hide my condition. "Jesus, I have a family," he yelled. "I can't be part of this." "This is exactly why I didn't tell you," I screamed. "Get out." I had a baby boy, Lucas. I thought it was only fair to let Howard know. Years went by. Howard messaged me out of the blue, saying he wanted to visit. I was hesitant, but agreed. "I really want to be part of his life," he said as Lucas played with toys. "I'm not stopping you," I said. "But I don't want him getting hurt." We'd see him every few months or so, for a day or two at a time. Lucas didn't understand why Daddy never stayed long. I couldn't explain why. "Howard, you need to tell your wife." "That's not gonna happen." This is confusing for Lucas. "It's not fair that you go home to your family, to your other son, and leave him for months at a time." "Perhaps she'll be reasonable?" He laughed. "You knew what the deal was, Imogen. I'm not about to fuck up my marriage." "Maybe I'll tell her myself, then," I said. I screamed as he pushed me against the wall. "Don't threaten me, bitch." "Daddy," said Lucas. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," said Howard, letting me go. "Just go and play." In the weeks that followed, I thought long and hard about the situation. I decided that one way or another, I was going to let Howard's wife know about Lucas. At that point, I really didn't care about my relationship with him. I started with social media, but couldn't find anything. It wasn't too difficult to find a home address though. They lived a few hours away. "Lucas, we're going for a drive," I said late one afternoon. I got him strapped in the back of the car as light rain fell. Before leaving, I texted Howard his address, informing him we were en route. My phone blew up with calls and messages, which I ignored. As evening approached, the heavens opened, forcing me to slow down on the highway. I noticed a car behind me driving close, which started flashing its lights and beeping the horn. My phone lit up again. It was Howard. "Pull over," he screamed over the car speakers. "Stay back," I yelled. "Pull over." "Mommy, I'm scared," said Lucas. "Howard, this is dangerous." "Pull over, then." I ended the call and put my foot down. Howard caught up and rammed into the back of us, making us both scream out. "Why is Daddy doing this?" Lucas cried. "Because he's a bad man." Howard pulled up alongside us and turned sharply into my car. I lost control and hurtled down the bank off the highway. Lucas screamed until we came to an abrupt stop. I focused and saw a metal tower looming over us, red lights blinking in the dark. I could feel rain on my face coming through the smashed windows. Lucas was still and silent. I tried to get free, but my legs were trapped. "Lucas," I cried. There was no answer. I grabbed my phone. Howard appeared, leaned through the window, and took it from me. "You made me do this," he said, his gloved hands on the sides of my head. I took in a deep breath as I was back in the closet, overwhelmed with emotion. Imogen let go of my arms and I almost collapsed. "You see," she said. "He's not what you think he is." "I'm so sorry," I said, wiping away tears. It was then that I remembered the most important thing in my life. Oscar! I ran from the closet and bedroom, gasping as Imogen appeared in the hallway. "They're coming home," she said. "What?" "Howard is driving home as we speak." I checked my phone. There were several missed calls and an angry voice message from Howard. I could hear Oscar whimpering in the background. "Were you ever going to tell me that Oscar's little friend is called Lucas? You didn't think that was an important thing to mention? Jesus Christ, Sasha. You let me feel like I was going insane. We're coming back. Pack some things because as far as I'm concerned, the house can burn to the ground." "Oh God," I said. "He's got my son. I don't know what to do." Imogen held my hands, her touch cold. "You're a good mom. You'll know what to do." I headed downstairs, my heart palpitating. I must have paced back and forth until I heard a car pull up in the driveway. The front door burst open. "Sasha," he yelled. I stood in the kitchen. He appeared, holding Oscar by the arm. "Come here, sweetheart," I said, holding my arms out to Oscar. "No," said Howard. "Go upstairs and start packing. We're getting out of here." "Mommy," said Oscar, clearly scared. "Howard, please," I said, approaching them. "You're scaring him. You're scaring me." "Are you serious?" Howard snapped. "We're living in a haunted house and I'm scaring you? Honey, you're not yourself right now. Oscar's friend, Lucas. It's just a coincidence." "He's not." "Don't fucking gaslight me," he sneered. "Okay," I said. "We'll leave. Let me help him, please." I reached out and put my arms around Oscar. Howard let go of his arm. "Be quick about it," he said. I headed upstairs with Oscar. "Did he hurt you?" I asked. He shook his head. "No. But he was yelling. He said that Lucas and his mommy are ghosts that want to kill us." I hugged him. "Oscar, Dad has some issues right now. I promise that Lucas and his mommy are good. They don't want to hurt us, okay?" We went to his room. "Can I bring some toys, too?" he asked. "Before we start packing, I need to talk to Daddy alone. I want you to stay up here with Lucas." "But..." "Sweetheart, listen to me. Don't leave this room until I come back. Do you understand?" He nodded. "Yes, Mommy." I closed the bedroom door as I left, listening for a moment until I heard him talking to Lucas. "Please look after my son," I said as I headed back downstairs. "Where's Oscar?" said Howard. "I wanted to talk to you alone," I said. I didn't want to say anything that would scare him. "We don't have time for this," he said. "Pack your shit because we're leaving." He motioned for the stairs. "I believe you," I said. He froze. "What?" "I saw her." "Who?" "Imogen." He covered his mouth with his hand. "Oh my God. She was in there just before you came home." I pointed to the downstairs bathroom. Howard slowly turned his head towards the door. Really? She's upset. I think it might help if you talk to her." "No," he yelled. "You're out of your goddamn mind. Please, Howard. She just wants to be at peace." I could see his hand shake as he stomped towards the bathroom. "Peace? Leave us alone if you want peace. Do you hear me? You're not welcome here." I ran and pushed Howard into the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind him. I grabbed a dining chair and wedged the back of it under the door handle as it rattled. "Sasha!" he screamed. Let me the fuck out of here, now. I called 911, my whole body shaking as he banged on the door, screaming obscenities. Help! I yelled down the phone. My husband is trying to force my son and I to leave our home. And he did something bad. Really bad. I screamed as the wooden door splintered down the middle, then continued to split as Howard forced himself into it. The legs of the chair gave way and the door flew open. Help! I screamed, dropping my phone. Howard charged at me. I ran out of the patio doors and headed down the dark garden towards the illuminated shed. He grabbed my hair from behind. I turned and kneed him between the legs, making him groan and stumble back. I continued running to the shed and locked the door behind me, out of breath. The first thing I noticed was the intense smell of pine. And the heat. It got warm in the shed due to the melting pot, but it was considerably warm. I realized that I hadn't switched it off after using it earlier in the day, having been distracted by Imogen's garden visit. The pot was filled with liquid wax. The warning light was blinking and it was making some strange noises. The shed window shattered, a large rock hitting the floor. Howard was practically foaming at the mouth as he clambered through it. I was backed against the door, trying to get it open again. Please, Howard, I cried. Don't even think about haunting me, bitch, he sneered. The wind was knocked out of me as the door opened and I fell onto my back. I looked up to see Howard's shocked expression as a hand gripped his shoulder from behind. No, wait, he yelled, before Imogen pushed his head into the pot of wax. His arms flailed around as he made gargled sounds. She turned to look at me, then the door slammed shut. I don't know how long I was there for, it's all a bit of a blur. But it was until I no longer heard Howard's struggles and the sound of sirens got closer to the house.